Welcome back to the Q Creator. Today we're going to build the user interface to a digital garden. This will take inputs from a fish tank. It'll also take inputs from the reservoir, a water pump, which we use to control the water flow between the two. We'll have a sensor for the air temperature. We'll also have a sensor for the ammonia levels within the fish tank itself. We'll have a pH balance to also measure what that is too in the fish tank, so the fish will be happy. We'll take the flow rate of the pump and how that water is being pushed back and forth. We'll look at the power levels, take a look at the pump load, and finally take a look at the actual light source itself, and we'll be able to control these things. Now, right now I'll just be working on the user interface. So I can also select any one of these in any order. I can scroll up and down. And this little bar at the bottom is just a timer, and it's going to keep this screen on so it can cycle through. All of this will be placed onto a touch screen. But today, it's about building the user interface. So stay tuned, and let's get started. Alright, so the first order of business is really going to be our imports. And we'll need three. We'll need three imports for this. The first three imports we're going to need is we're going to need the Qt Quick, the shapes, and the controls. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a window. And in that window, that's where we're going to house all of the information and the user interface elements that you just saw. So I'll create my ID, call it root. Then I'll go ahead and I'll create the width, the visibility of it, and the title. And so this is what we're going to have. Whoops, double type. So this is what we'll have. I'm going to set this to 8 by 480 because that will be the size of my touchscreen device. And then I want to go ahead and I want to create a color palette. So in my color palette, these are going to be all my colors that I'll use. So I'll have the background color, white, mustard, salmon, sky, and charcoal. Those are just predefined, and I make them all read-only. The next thing I'd like to do is I need to create an ambient boolean. And this will be controlled for the background. And I'll create a base color, and the base color will be called the color background. Now the next thing I need to do is I actually need to create, so when that pop-up updates, when we saw it earlier, we see the little pop-up updates with the timer in the bottom, and shows the little animation. I need something to do with that. So how I deal with that is I'll create the logic for that, and it'll just be a little function here. And that function will take an index. It'll check if the index is less than 0, or if it's greater than the garden model count. If it is, then we don't want to do anything. Otherwise, we're going to collect the data. We're going to get the text from each stage, the title, the value, and the details. And then we'll set the colors according to the theme, rotate it randomly, and then restart the animation once it's finished. The next thing we're going to need to do is, well, we need a running timer. And that running timer will be called cycle timer. The interval will be 7,000 milliseconds. We'll make sure that it's not ambient. We'll repeat it. And then we'll also check the sidebar, what the current index is when it's triggered, when this timer is triggered. It's going to look at that sidebar, run the index, and then just loop through the number of items. So if there's 10 items, it'll count up to 9 and then loop back around to the 0 count. And in this case, the index is going to be +1. So that takes care of that. Now we also want some interaction. So when I want to click on the left-hand side on that menu, I want to move things around a little bit. So we're going to fill the parent, and then we're going to check the ambience, whether it's true or false. Now I can go ahead and I can actually start doing things. So I want to create that little starburst, and it's just a text. Give it this little character first. Set the pixel size, set the color, the opacity, make it 1/4, and then I'll give it the parent width and the location X and Y and rotate it. So then the next thing I need to do is I need to create a row. I should give this a name. I like to name things. So let's call it garden row root. And then inside of there, I'll create my anchor fill, which is going to be the parent. I'll set the margins to 25 and my spacing to 15. Now the reason why I'm using numbers and not necessarily a row layout is because I like it to be specific. I'm really looking for that specific pixel value, and I want it to be actually a 25 pixel margin, and then each one I want 15 pixels between them. And since it's a fairly small project, I like that actual artistic control, if you will. So then the next thing is we need to make a sidebar. So inside of my sidebar, here's my container. It's just an item. So the grouping. I want to make sure that slider clicks are above the background mouse area. So I'm going to set the Z level to 10. Then I create the list view of the sidebar. I'll create my header column. And inside of there, I'll create the text for the garden. So this is the first header. Then I'll set my delegate to the sidebar delegate. And so the next thing I need to do is I actually need to start building the stage, which goes here. Okay, I do that wrong? Here. Okay. There. I have another item called the stage. I'm going to set the width of this to that sidebar container width and to the parent height. Now again, I want this specific, so I'm going to give it a specific value. Then create my rectangle, and I can give this an ID of main card. And then I'll fill it, give it my margins, give it some coloring, and a little bit of rotation. Then I need to make the ambient layer. So what we saw before with that ambient animation layer, this is it. So I create my item, call my animation layer. I'm going to create a behavior on it. It's an opacity behavior. It lasts about 600. Then I create another rectangle. Okay. Inside that rectangle, oh, I forgot my ID. Animrect. Inside of there, I'll create a sequential animation. The animation will be on the radius. It'll loop for infinite amount. And then I'll rotate it, or create the number animation from 0 to 100 and then back from 100 to 0. Each will last about 3,000. So then the next thing I need to do is I need to create a column. And so inside of this column, I need to add a bunch of things. So the first thing I need to do is I need to name it. So I'll call it the main display. This too will have an animation on it. And then I'm going to start creating these text fields. So each one of these text fields, so this will be defined by the color, give it an ID, so forth. I now want to create an item. Now this item, an ID, set the width and the height, create another rectangle with value blocks, and I want to set those anchors to the parent. Set the width and the height, my radius, then add some more text. So this is important because I'm going to be able to come back and update this text dynamically. That's why these are being set up in the way in which they are. So the next thing, create another piece of text with the details in it. And finally, you remember that little line that animated? Well, I need to set that up too. So here's my progress line, the little bar that went across. I'll give it the height. It's going to be opaque, or the opacity of it over time. We'll set the anchors, and then we begin the radius and color. And the opacity will animate over a course of 100, along with okay, so now what's important is I now need to create a component. Whoops. The component layer, it's complaining that it needs a child. I didn't type it in yet. It's already giving me a hard time. So the component layer, I'll give an ID, and the ID will be the sidebar delegate. Now inside of there, I need an item. So let's go ahead and create that item. So inside the item, I'll have my width set to the sidebar. Notice how it's no longer upset about the item which is in here, because I need one. So it needs a child. So notice if I just do this, see that? It requires a child. So when you create a component, need to have the child. So inside of this item, I'm now going to begin to populate it. So I will go ahead and add two things right now. I'm going to add a rectangle, and I'll call it sidebar child. And then we're going to have the highlight logic, which becomes restored. So right here, this is what I mean, right here. Set the opacity, and then all of these are going to be bound and animated, which we see here on opacity. And then here's my text. And then finally, what I need the mouse area. So when I go ahead and click on it, it's got to actually do something. So when I make that selection, when it's clicked, I'll set the index to the index. I'll go ahead and call my update pop-up, pass the index, and then I can set the ambient back to false. Now, to create that menu, I need to populate it with something. And what I need to populate it with is the list item. So here's my list model, and then here's all my data. So here's my name, all those elements that we saw on the left-hand side, giving it the current value. This will be updated when we make the connection to the devices and the sensors. But right now, again, I'm just making the UI. That'll be done in C++. This is just QML. I'll put my little fun text blurb in there along with the theme that I want to use, which was predefined up above. Next, last two things. I need to go ahead and assign the number animations and then change the component. So here's my number animation. There. Here's my number animation. Here's my stage animation. And that basically concludes all of the code. That's how this is all going to run. Now let's go take a look at it again. Let's run it one more time. All right, so here it is. It started. And when I click, notice that animation. Notice how it fades out. See how it just fades out when it gets to the end? That's what the opacity animation was, right there. Boom, see it? And then this little pop right here, where this pops in, that was the rotation. The clicking aspect, we're putting in the mouse area, that's what it does. And remember the header, the garden. So that's how it all works. See the pop-up? See that little animation? That's what the pop-up is. And the index is from the left-hand side. So I hope you learned something. I hope this was helpful. And stay tuned. Thank you for watching.